be aware that what China is looking at doing right now with Taiwan, whether it's an amphibious invasion on the beaches of Taiwan, or dropping in paratroopers, or taking some outlying islands of Taiwan to begin and see what happens. If something like that happens, you can look at what happened with Ukraine and realize that the ability to source things out of China, anything, will become incredibly minimal. The ripple effects of that throughout our economy would be enormous. Hey everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. As always, I'm here with an update for you on what's gone on in Washington, D.C. this week. And I want to start with something that hits close to home for all of us. It's National Estuaries Week. Now, Florida's water, it's what makes our state so great. It's why so many people want to come down, call it home, be on the beach, be on the water, the intercoastal, the sandbar. But aside from enjoying time with our friends and family out on that water, fishing or playing or tubing or doing whatever, the estuaries, they play a crucial role in our local economy. Now, according to NOAA, estuaries take up only about 13% of the land area of the continental United States, but they contribute to about 40% of jobs and 50% of the nation's economic output. Because why? Because Americans love to be on those areas of the water. That's why I introduced bipartisan legislation with Representative Bill Posey, who borders me right at the north, right? Our district stops at the Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County line. Bill Posey's district starts in Indian River and Vero Beach. And so we work together to recognize National Estuaries Week. This bill is all about recognizing the importance of our estuaries and demonstrating a commitment to public health, a commitment to the environment and the economies that depend on those two things. It is an honor to represent the Treasure Coast and represent the Palm Beaches. And I'm going to continue to work on legislation like that, as I've done from the very beginning, to protect our estuaries and our natural resources and our Florida way of life, because that's our Florida way of life, is being on the water. On an international front, I joined other members of the Foreign Affairs Committee for a briefing from the United States Ambassador to China. Now, whether it's a refusal to take responsibility for COVID-19, to its threats against Taiwan, to the supply chain issues that are going on, there's no shortage of potential threats from Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. And our nation as a whole needs to take steps to lessen our dependence on China. Take the beginning of our pandemic, for example. It took us months to get crucial PPE for frontline healthcare workers. That highlighted the vulnerabilities of our supply chain, and China's current stance towards Taiwan only makes that more volatile. If Xi Jinping decides to pull a Vladimir Putin and attack Taiwan the way that Putin attacked Ukraine, companies across the country, from big corporations to small businesses, will no longer be able to source materials from China. I can pretty much guarantee that. So I'm offering this as a warning. Be aware that what China is looking at doing right now with Taiwan, whether it's an amphibious invasion on the beaches of Taiwan, or dropping in paratroopers, or taking some outlying islands of Taiwan to begin and see what happens. If something like that happens, you can look at what happened with Ukraine and realize that the ability to source things out of China, anything, will become incredibly minimal. The ripple effects of that throughout our economy would be enormous. So my encouragement to anybody in business, if you get your epoxy from China, if you get your plastic from China, if you get something from China, take steps now to shore up your own production. Diversify your production, making sure that you are not dependent on China, because if they choose to invade Taiwan, it is going to be major problems for anybody in America to source anything from that country. Also this week, the Federal Reserve has announced that they are raising interest rates again, this time by another 75 basis points. So let's break that down and how that matters to you. The Fed is trying to slow down our economy, trying to make things more expensive for everybody back home like you, to borrow money for credit cards, mortgages, car loans, etc. They want things to be more expensive so that you're not using those things as much. But the reality is, We can't use less fuel because we have our commitments to go to work. We can't use less groceries because we have X number of members of our family that have to eat every day. You borrow less, you spend less is the idea, but there are still things that you have to go out there and provide for in your life every single day. But they're thinking that prices will come down if they do that. But here's the problem. Biden's runaway spending has sent prices on the basics skyrocketing through the roof, and the people's paychecks cannot keep up. In fact, over 19 million credit cards were opened in the first quarter of 2022. People are turning to credit cards just to buy the basics like groceries, those things that they need to provide for their family that will not change. It's not like they're splurging on the newest iPhone or something else. They're not going to stop buying those groceries. They have to keep buying them. But now they have to go on the credit card, which means all the Fed is doing is making it more expensive for folks to pay their minimum at the end of the month. That's not combating inflation. That's creating another inflation for every single American back home just trying to put a lunch into their kids' school box or provide a dinner at the table when their kids come home from school. If the Biden administration wants to get serious about combating inflation, they need to do two things right now. Stop the out-of-control federal spending, like the $500 billion that's going to pay for the student loans of individuals that dropped classes or failed classes because they spent too much time partying each and every night. Or they need to unleash domestic energy production, authorize pipelines, authorize oil and gas leases so that we can provide for our energy from sea to shining sea. Raising interest rates is just more pain without any payoff for the Americans in my community. But that was This Week in DC. I do hope that you all have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you all around town. You all take care. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe. I will be back on YouTube with more exclusive content, so stay tuned.